Hello, welcome everyone to lecture number 11 on fundamentals of computing. The title of this lecture is problem solving techniques using computers. The topics that I am going to cover in this lecture are algorithm, flowchart and pseudocodes. So, first define algorithm. What is algorithm? Algorithm is nothing but it is a finite sequence of steps that are required to solve a given problem. Means here you have to define the steps, each of them should be clear enough. There should not be any ambiguity in that. Suppose you want to make a tea. What are the steps to make a tea? First you have to take a pan, then add some water into it, put it on the gas, on it, and then once it starts boiling, then you will add a ginger, tea leaves. Then after some time, when it start boiling, you will add some milk and sugar according to your taste, and once it boils, then you said yes, tea is prepared. So, these are the steps that has to be followed for making a tea. Similarly, for any problem, you have to define the steps. What are the characteristics of an algorithm? It may take one or more inputs. There are finite number of steps to solve a problem. Each step is unambiguous, means clarity should be there what this step is intended to do. Steps follow some sequence, or you can say specified sequence or some order. It will produce two or more outputs. So, this was about the algorithm. Let us take an example for addition of two numbers. So, what we do, first step is start. Okay. Then for addition of two numbers, what you have to do? You have to take two numbers. Okay. So, they may be anything, if it is, it may be integer or it may be you can say fraction, decimal fraction, or it may be positive or negative number. So, next step is what? Read num1, then read num2. So, it means what? You have taken an input of what? Number 1 and number 2. This can be combined also in one step. You can write it as read num1 and num2 that you want to add. Then after that, what you have to do? You have to find the sum of this. So, sum of this means it will be stored somewhere after adding this num1 and num2. So, let us I say it is stored in sum. So, sum is equals to nothing but it is the num1 plus num2. Then once the sum is stored in sum, then next you have to do what? Print the sum, that is the number that you get after the addition, and once it is done you have to stop. Say num1 is 2 and num2 is 3. So, from here the sum is equals to what? Your 2 plus 3, that is equals to 5, and what it will do? It will simply print 5. This is the algorithm for adding two numbers. Another concept is flowchart, which is nothing but it is a pictorial representation of a algorithm. There are various symbols which are used in the flowchart. So, we will discuss all these symbols one by one. For a start and a stop, we use a oval shape. For reading or printout, or you can say another way, input or output operation, we use a parallelogram. For operation step, means that is in the previous case it was sum is equals to num1 plus num2, that was the calculation. You use a rectangle. For decision, where this is correct or wrong. In that case, we use a diamond shape. To indicate a flow between the steps, arrow is used. For connecting a two page, if the flow chart is not fit in the one page, you need another page in the continuation. So, in that case, we use a circle. For predefined process, or you can say functions used to represent a group of statements performing one processing task, the symbol is used. For preprocessor, this symbol is used. For documents and multi-document, these are the symbols which are used in the flow chart. So, what is the difference between algorithm and flow chart? As I told you earlier, algorithm is nothing but it is a finite sequence of steps that are required to solve a given problem, whereas flow chart is nothing but it is a pictorial representation of algorithm. So, it means what? Algorithm is step by step summary of the procedure, whereas flow chart illustrates the steps of a program graphically. Algorithm is more challenging for a layman to understand, whereas flow chart is easy to understand. Algorithms are used in the domain of mathematics and computer science, whereas flow chart can be used in different disciplines to describe process. Algorithm is hard to display branching and looping, whereas flow chart, by using a flow chart, it will be simple to display branching and looping. Flow chart uses symbols and lines to represent steps in a process, whereas algorithm is written in language that can be non-computer specific. So, these are the differences between the algorithm and flow chart. Let us draw a flow chart for addition of two numbers. We have already written an algorithm which was, first one is start, then read num1, num2, then sum is equals to num1 plus num2 and then print sum and finally stop. This was the algorithm for addition of two numbers. So, for the flow chart for start and stop, we have to use what? The oval. So, this is what the start, then arrow indicates the moment from one step to another. So, next step is what? Read num1 and num2. So, we use what? The parallelogram for this. So, it is read num1 comma num2. Then next step is sum. So, for this we use the rectangle, that is sum is equals to num1 plus num2 and then you have to print it. So, for output we use this. So, you can write print sum and then finally stop. So, this is the algorithm for addition of two numbers and this is the flow chart for addition of two numbers. Let us take another example to find the largest among two numbers. So, first write the algorithm. Here you have to read these two numbers, say A and B, okay, and then you have to compare it. So, if A is greater than B, then print what? A, else if you do not need a if statement over here, you can simply write it what? If A is not greater than B, it means what? Else you have to print what? B, because only two numbers are there and then stop. So, what is the flow chart of this? For a start, use the oval. So, start over here, then the next step is read these two numbers. So, read what? A and B. Then you have to take a decision. So, we use what? The diamond shape over here. Here we will write if A is greater than B. So, it may be either greater than or it may be either less than. If it is greater than, then you have to follow this path. If it is less than, then you have to follow this path. If A is greater than B, it means what? You have to print A, because A is largest. If A is not greater than B, obviously it means what? Print B. And in both the cases, finally you have to what? Stop. So, this is the algorithm and flow chart to find largest among two numbers. Another one is a pseudo code. Pseudo code, it is nothing but it is written in a combination of plain English and common symbols and describes in the detailed step by step manner the processes used in the algorithm. So, it comprises of start and end that we have seen in the case of algorithm and flow chart also, that is a start and a stop over there. So, it is the same thing that indicates the start of it, and a stop indicates that you have to stop over there, or end of the algorithm or end of the pseudo code. Input, it indicates that the program needs to receive data from the user or an external source. Then initialize, you can set some initial values to a variable. Variable here means what? In the previous example of algorithm, I used a number num1, num2, these are the variables A, B, sum, these are called the variables. So, initialization means what? If you want to initialize it, say if sum is equals to 0 means what? Initially its value is 0, it means 0 is assigned to sum. For, it represents a loop that iterates through each element of a list, that I will discuss in detail in my later examples of algorithm and flow chart. Add, this is simply what? The perform the addition operation. Calculate, it simply performs the calculation as specified, and display, which is same as what? The print in the case of your algorithm and the flow chart. So, what is the difference between algorithm and the pseudo code? Algorithm is a step by step summary of the procedure, whereas pseudo code, it is a simplified version of the algorithm written in plain language. Algorithm is difficult to understand for non-programmers, whereas it is easy for non-programmers. Algorithm is generally plain text, whereas in the case of a pseudo codes, control structures such as while, if then else, repeat until, these are used. Algorithm is easy to debug, whereas pseudo code is relatively difficult to debug. Algorithm is unstructured, where pseudo codes are structured, but not specific to any programming language. So, these are the differences between the algorithm and pseudo code. So, let us take an example to demonstrate it. Here I have taken this example which reads two numbers, because here input is there, it means what? It will read number, or you can say variable A and B, and check if A is greater than B, then it will print what? A is greatest. Else it will print B is greatest. So, this is the pseudo code for finding the largest among two numbers. What is the corresponding algorithm? Here you have to write what? Start, read A, read B. This can be combined as read A comma B. Then check if A is greater than B. It means what? You have to print A is greatest, else print what? B is greatest and stop. So, this is the algorithm for printing the largest among two numbers. This one is pseudocode and this one is the algorithm. Take another example which compares three numbers to find the largest among these. First, I will consider the pseudocode. So, what the pseudocode says? Input. This means what? Read the variables, or you can say numbers A, B and C. Then it will check if A is greater than B and A is greater than C. It means what? Output A is largest. Else if B is greater than A and B is greater than C, then it means what? B is largest. Otherwise, that is else, output C is largest. So, this is the pseudocode for finding the largest among three numbers. What is the algorithm for the same problem, that is the largest among three numbers? First, you have to start, read A, B and C. We have taken some variable max. This is called initialization. Means here we are assigning a value 0 to max. Then in the next step it says if A is greater than B, then where it has to go? To the step 5, otherwise go to step 6. So, this is specified over here. If A is greater than B, go to step 5, which says if A is greater than C, then set max is equals to A. Set max is equals to A means what? Assign a value A to max. Now, in max instead of 0 you have what? The A, otherwise C will be assigned to max. If A is less than B, then again you have to compare. If B is greater than C, then it means what? B is now the greatest, so this will be assigned to max, otherwise C will be greatest, which will be assigned to max. So, max contains what? This contains the largest variable, or you can say largest number. It may be either A or B or C depending upon the values that has been assigned to A, B and C. So, this is the pseudocode and this is the algorithm for finding the largest among three numbers. Now, what is the flow chart for this? The same problem. Flow chart for finding the largest among two numbers. So, here you have to what? First start, then read these two numbers A comma B, then you have to compare if A is greater than B. If it is yes, it may be either yes or it may be no. If it is yes, then print A, otherwise print B and then stop. So, this is the flow chart for finding the largest among two numbers. What is the case in the not the case, you can say flow chart in the case of largest among three numbers. So, first you have to read these three numbers A, B and C, then you have to check if A is greater than B and A is greater than C. If both the case it may be yes or it may be no. If it is yes, means A is greater than B as well as A is greater than C. So, in that case you have to print what? A, because A is largest. If it is not, then again you have to compare. What you have to compare? If A is greater than B and A is A is already done, then you have to check for B. B is greater than A, B is greater than C. It may be either yes or it may be no. So, this is what B is greater than C, greater than A, and B is greater than C. It means what? If both of them is satisfied, it means B is greater than A as well as B is greater than C. In that case, which one is the largest? Obviously the B. So, we print B. Else, obviously print what? C, and after that stop. So, this is the flow chart for finding the largest among three numbers. I can clear it also because this is not that much clear. So, I write it again. If B is greater than A and B is greater than C. So, this is the flow chart for both the problems for finding the largest among two numbers and largest among the three numbers. So, this all I have discussed about the algorithm, flow chart and the pseudocode. Thank you.